لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي رب زدني علما رب زدني علما نافعا في الدنيا والآخرة. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters. Welcome to another session of the Tafakkur class, the deeper understanding of the Quran. 231 we will continue, 231 to 242 we'll try to cover all of them today because this will take us to the conclusion of the third section of the Surah Al-Baqarah. First session was about what this book is about, what's going to be the response of different kinds of people. The second section was about Bani Israel, whole history, why the imamat, the leadership was changed from them and given to this new group. And then we're in the third one, which started from what are the obligations of this new group, this new ummah. And we talked about salah, if you remember, to begin with salah and zakat. And then we talked about hajj, we talked about siyam, fasting, and we talked about towards the end infaq and bodily jihad, both sacrifice for the sake of Allah for both your money as well as your body. And in relation to that, then all these questions came up in relation to women, in relation to marriage, and now in relation to marriage, we're talking about the divorce as well. And as you will find out, inshallah, towards the end, right towards the end, you will see how the Quran, comes back, how the ijaz of the Quran, the beauty of the Quran is that it comes back and concludes its topic in an amazing manner. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in this ayah, so we're continuing with the same topic. وَإِذَا طَلَّقْتُمُ النِّسَاءَ فَبَلَغْنَا أَجَلَهُنَّ فَأَمْسِكُهُنَّ بِمَعْرُوفٍ أَوْ سَرِّحُهُنَّ بِمَعْرُوفٍ. So if you remember 129 verse, the same ayah was mentioned in a positive way that, when you have given talaq, when you have divorced your women, then ease them to trouble them. You should either keep after the second talaq, you should either keep them after the second talaq, bil ma'roof, in the most decent and dignified manner, or you should let them go if the third talaq has happened, again in a decent and dignified manner. But here the negative part is also mentioned for those cruel men who can be very, vindictive. وَلَا تُمْسِكُهُنَّ زِرَارًا لِتَعْتَدُوا. Do not keep them and prevent them from getting fully divorced just to trouble them, just to cause problems for them, just to harm them. You do not have that. وَمَنْ يَفْعَلْ ذَلِكَ فَقَدْ ظَلَمَ نَفْسَهُ. Whoever does this will be doing zulm to his own nafs, to his own self, meaning he will be preparing himself for punishment. Why? Because وَلَا تَتَّخِذُوا آيَاتِ اللَّهِ هُزُوًا. Do not make fun of Allah's commands, because this person is trying to make fun of, a mockery of Allah's laws and commands by not letting the woman go, by abusing the system of 3 divorces and thus keeping the woman in trouble. So Allah says, don't make fun and mockery of my commandments. You're going to really regret that in the hereafter. وَاذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ. And remember the great blessing that Allah has. Now this is an appeal to the Muslims. وَاذْكُرُوا, remember, bring to your mind نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ, Allah's great blessing that He has blessed you with. What? أَنْمَا أَنزَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِنَ الْكِتَابِ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. He has given you kitab and hikmah. And we have discussed this before. Kitab means the law of Allah, the commands, and hikmah means the reasoning behind those commands, and ethics and morality behind all of this. So ethics and morality He has given you. He has given you the essence of those laws, and He has given you laws as well. And this is a great blessing that He has given you. يَعِزُكُمْ بِهِ. And this is how Allah reminds you. Allah advises you through these hikmah and kitab. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٌ. And be fearful of Allah, because these divorce situations can be very bitter at times, unfortunately. Excuse me. So people can become quite bitter and people can become quite spiteful and hateful. Allah says, remember, wattaqullah. You should be fearful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and remember, وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٌ. Allah knows everything. He knows exactly what you are thinking. He knows exactly what your wife or divorced or ex-wife is thinking, and he knows exactly what each one of you is planning. So be fearful of Allah, do not commit anything which is an excess. Then the next ayat 32, Allah says, وَإِذَا طَلَّقْتُمُ النِّسَاءَ فَبَلَغْنَ أَجَلَهُنَّ فَلَا تَعْضُلُوهُنَّ أَن يَنكِحْنَ أَزْوَاجَهُنَّ إِذَا تَرَاضُوا بَيْنَهُم بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Another thing that happens in societies, that when you have divorced a woman, let her marry whomever she wants. Do not create unnecessary hurdles for her. Or this goes for both ways, wives and husbands. That you should never do these kind of things where you prevent a woman from remarrying, or you prevent a person from marrying somebody else, or someone you may not like, or someone you may not perceive to be good, and then people start conniving, making plans, and all these nonsense kind of ideas that come to their mind. Allah says, do not do these things. This does not behove a Muslim. ذَلِكَ يُعَزُ بِهِ مَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ يُؤْمِنُ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. Allah says, and I am advising this, and I'm giving this advice to those people who among you really believe in Allah and the Day of Judgment, who really believe in Allah and who really believe in the Day of Judgment, meaning they will not do this. If you truly believe in Allah and the Day of Judgment, how can you do this? ذَلِكُمْ أَزْكَى لَكُمْ وَأَطْهَرُ. This is for your own purification and for your own purity and piety. This is for your own purity and piety, that you keep away from such things. You have had a disagreement with somebody, they could not walk with you in the life, no problem. It happens in life. Let them walk in their own path and let you walk in your own path. Do not be such spiteful against them that you create hurdles for them. Wallahu ya'lamu wa antum la ta'lam. Again, a stern warning. Allah knows, you do not know. Meaning you do not know what is good for you or what is good for them. If you're trying to create hurdles, because usually people create hurdles in the name of, oh, I'm doing this for the good of the other person. I don't want him to marry such and such because such and such is bad and this, that, and the other. It's not your job. Not your issue at all. What the other person wants to do with their life is their problem. Why should you be coming forward? Because you have a huge conflict of interest over here. You are ex-husband or ex-wife of this person. So you are actually the least of the people who should be giving advice about their married life. You are not the right person to give the advice. So Allah says, Wallahu ya'lamu wa antum la ta'lamun. Allah knows what is good for people. You do not know. Don't become God. Don't start thinking that I know what is good for the others and I will give them the right mashwara and the right guidance. So do not fall a prey to that. Then again, in relation to that comes the child. What about the child? Because who's getting divorced? وَالْوَالِدَاتُ يُرْضِينَ أَوْلَادَهُنَّ حَوْلَيْنِ كَامِلَيْنِ لِمَنْ أَرَادَ أَنْ يُتِمَّ الرَّضَاعَةَ. Allah says, then if the child who needs to be suckled, if the baby is born and you are divorcing, and it's a baby who still needs suckled, so that's up to 2 years. Up to 2 years, the woman should breastfeed the child. And وَعَلَى الْمَوْلُودِ لَهُ رِزْقُهُنَّ وَكِسْوَتُهُنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. And upon the father is the responsibility to take care of their daily living expenses of both the mother and the child for that 2-year period during which the mother agrees to breastfeed the child. Because remember, the male is always responsible for the financial aspect. Although they are divorced, but because the child is being cared for, the child is being given food and being breastfed by the mother, so mother gets a compensation, financial compensation, that all her daily routine food and clothing is now paid for by the husband for these 2 years. لا تكلف نفس إلا وسعها. However, it should not be taken for granted. Nobody should be burdened. Neither the mother should be burdened, nor the father should be burdened. لا تضار والدة بولدها ولا مولود له بولده. Neither should the father be burdened because of the child, nor should the mother be burdened because of the child. Oh, it's your child, you have to do it anyway, or this is your child, you should be doing more. No. وَعَلَى الْوَارِثُ مِثْلُ ذَلِكَ. So basically what it means is, according to the means of this person, he has to perform. He has to give them according to the means. and also according to the lifestyle of the mother and the child, if it is within the right boundaries, Islamic boundaries, not extravagant lifestyles, nonsense useless lifestyle. And then Allah says, وَعَلَى الْوَارِثِ مِثْلُ ذَلِكَ. And if the father is already passed away, then the heirs, those who have inherited from the father, they have the same responsibility as that they have to provide for those 2 years for the child as well as the mother. فَإِنْ أَرَادَ فِصَالًا عَنْ تَرَاضٍ مِّنْهُمَا وَتَشَاوُرٍ فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْهِمْ. That إِنْ أَرَدْتُمْ أَنْ تَسْتَرْضِعُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذَا سَلَّمْتُمْ مَا آتَيْتُمْ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. Now, 2 more conditions Allah has mentioned over here. That if you want to discontinue breastfeeding before 2 years, no problem at all. You can do that. But that has to be by the agreement between the husband, the ex-husband and ex-wife. So parents, mashwara, parents consultation, mutual consultation is a must for that. And similarly, if you want somebody else to feed the child, somebody else to breastfeed the child, that can also be done. There is no harm in that. But in that case, you have to follow the agreement that you had done with the mother to provide her with whatever you had agreed upon. If there was an agreement already in place that you would provide her, the mother still deserves that provision, even if you want to change and you want somebody else to breastfeed the child for the rest of the time. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَأَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ بَصِيرٌ. Again, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ, be fearful of Allah. These are hukukul ibad, these are rights of people. And these are rights of people in difficult situations where you have parted ways, there may be bitterness, there may be a lot of that, but you fear Allah. And remember, أَنَّ اللَّهَ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ بَصِيرٌ. Allah is watching everything that you do. Whatever amal you are doing, the way you are approaching, the way you're perceiving, the way you're dealing with this, Allah is aware of all that, your intentions, your niyyah, your practice, everything. So when such things are happening, remember you're doing it for the sake of Allah. Even if there is mutual disagreements and bitterness, which will be there because we're all humans at the end of the day. But Allah says, for the sake of Allah, for the fear of Allah, you continue to do good. Then again, in relation to the same topic in the next ayah, which is the 34th ayah, وَالَّذِينَ يُتَوَفَّوْنَ مِنْكُمْ وَيَذَرُونَ أَزْوَاجًا يَتَرَبَّصْنَ بِأَنفُسِهِنَّ أَرْبَعَةَ أَشْهُرٍ وَعَشْرًا. If the husband has passed away and has left, obviously, the wife, then the wife has to stay. See how idda in the divorce, if you remember from last week, how many months was it? 3 months, only 3 months. It was 3 months, 3 tuhur, 3 purified periods basically of the woman. But in here, somebody who has passed away, so the widow has been given 4 months and 10 days. 4 months and 10 days. Obviously, this is for the reason that there is an emotion attached. The person has died. It's not a bitterness of separation. It's the death. So she is mourning. She has to mourn the death. She has to come out of that. So she has been given more time to come out of that emotion. So 4 months and 10 days she has been asked to wait. Again, for the same reason, if she is carrying a child and she gives birth child the next day, then she doesn't have to wait for 4 months. But again, the same rule applies as it applies, because the same ruling is the same, that it is to clarify whether she is carrying a baby or not. فَإِذَا بَلَغْنَا أَجَلَهُنَّ فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي مَا فَعَلْنَ فِي أَنفُسِهِنَّ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ. And when those 4 months and 10 days have passed, then it's up to her, whatever she wants to do with ma'ruf, with nice ways, dignified ways. She wants to remarry, she wants to go somewhere else, she wants to take a break, whatever she wants to do, it's up to her. Wallahu bima ta'amaluna khabiran. Allah is again khabir of whatever you are doing. So this is for both males and females. ولا جناح عليكم فيما أردتم به من خطبة النساء أو أكننتم في أنفسكم علم الله أنكم ستذكرون هن ولكن لا تواعدوهن سرا إلا أن تقولوا قولا معروفا. Now Allah is advising the rest of the males. Now remember, when she is in that mourning period, when she's in those 4 months and 10 days, you are not allowed to send a marriage proposal to her. However, khitbah, you can send a message, an indirect message, that I would like to marry you, through yourself or through, in a very tacit manner, without making any, you can't make an agreement, you can't agree to do a nikah, You cannot send a formal marriage proposal, and you cannot do something in secrecy. Everything has to be open. What you can do, you can very tacitly send an, if you want to marry that woman, say, okay, I would like, once inshallah everything is done, I would like to discuss with you about marriage and I'm interested. Or somebody else stays on your behalf, but not as a marriage proposal, just as an interest, because obviously she is still going through that emotional difficult time. And it's also disrespectful to the family who have just lost a son, and you are already deciding, means you have no sympathy and empathy towards the family. So this is a huge part of that. This comes in hukukul ibad as well, that you're not going to do that. Do not do that. Even if you have to, just tacitly, very, indirectly mention something, and that's all you can do. That's the maximum you can do during that period. And Allah said, "Alim Allahu annakum fatazkurunahunna, walakin la tu'ayiduhunna sirran illa an taqulu qawlan ma'rufa, and wala ta'zimu uqdatan nikahi hatta yablugha al-kitaba ajala." Allah said, I know your thought will come to your mind. They will cross your mind. If you're looking for marriage and the woman is really good from so many different aspects and you really want to marry her, I know, Allah says, I know her thought will come to your mind. But do not do anything secretly, or do not take this. Law has to apply these 4 months, 10 days, you have to wait before you send a formal. وَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَعْلَمُ مَا فِي أَنفُسِكُمْ فَاحْذَرُوا. Remember, Allah knows everything that is within your own hearts as well, in your hearts and mind. Oh, what is in your hearts and minds? And so stay away from this. Stay away from breaking this law. وَعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ حَلِيمٌ. Remember, Allah is forgiving and Allah is very forbearing. He's very halim. He accepts, he understands people's emotions, he understands how their emotions work, but he wants people to control their emotions, to be in control of their emotions rather than give in to their emotions. So remember that Allah is watching. Then the next ayah we continue. Allah says, لا جناح عليكم إن طلقتم النساء ما لم تمسوهن أو تفرضوا لهن فريضة ومتئوهن على الموسع قدره وعلى المقتر قدره متاعا بالمعروف حقا على المحسن. Again, in relation to this, Allah says, now there may be a situation where you have given talaq or divorce to a woman with whom you did not have any physical interaction, we did not have any sexual intercourse, and you did not actually agree on a meher as well. So in that case, you don't need to wait for anything. Obviously, there's no time period, and you don't have to pay meher either. You don't have, because you haven't agreed on a meher. So you have not agreed on a meher. So you have not touched the woman. So you have neither to pay the meher nor to wait for those 4 months, 10 days. However, look what Quran, I talked about this last week, as Quran I mentioned to you that the next ayahs will explain this even further. Allah wants the male to show that he has that leadership, and he is financially the guy who should be given financial responsibility. Allah says, وَمَتِّئُوهُنَّ, but still give them some wealth. Still give them some wealth. When they are leaving, when you're divorcing them, give them some wealth. عَلَى الْمُوسِي قَدَرَهُ, a rich person will give according to his means, and a poor person will give according to his means. مَتَاعًا بِالْمَعْرُوفِ, give them something which is decent and which is acceptable in the society. حَقًّا عَلَى الْمُحْسِنِينَ, حَقًّا عَلَى الْمُحْسِنِينَ, those who are muhsineen, who really want to do the best things, and really want to live a best life, it is farz on them. حَقًّا عَلَى الْمُحْسِنِينَ. If you really consider yourself a good Muslim, then it is farz on you to do this. Look at this. How amazing would be the impression when a person divorces and he says, you know what, I'm divorcing you, but I want to part on good ways. Easy. What a society we will have if this really happens. إن طلقتموهن من قبل أن تمسوهن وقد فرضتم لهن فريضة فنصف ما فرضتم إلا أن يعفون أو يعفون الذي بيده عقدة النكاح وأن تعفوا أقرب للتقوى ولا تنسوا الفضل بينكم إن الله بما تعملون بصير. Then Allah says, now, if the woman whom you have divorced, you haven't touched physically, there is no need to wait for 4 months, 10 days, fair enough. But you have agreed on a meher, then the least you do is give half of that meher. You give half of that meher, unless the woman herself says, no, I don't need any meher from you. Or unless you give full meher. Three conditions. So if you have divorced a woman whom you didn't touch physically, but you had agreed the meher, then Allah says, in that case, you have to give at least 50% of the meher. But if the woman forgives it or forgoes it, then you don't have to. But you should also forgo the option of 50%. You should give 100% meher. Allah says you should give 100% meher. Why? Because you carry the knot. You are the ones who are holding this knot. Because as you know, Quran gives the right to divorce to the husband. His wife can ask for the divorce. So you are holding this knot of nikah. So because of that, you should be more generous. So you should give full. And وَأَنْ تَعْفُ أَقْرَبُ لِلتَّقْوَى. And it is more closer to taqwa, God consciousness, that you show that. Because you are the financially stable person. And financial areas have always been, males are supposed to be more financially generous than females towards each other. And the third one is, وَلَا تَنْسَوُا الْفَضْلَ بَيْنَكُمْ. And do not forget that you have afdal. You have that 1 degree over females because you are the one who spend money. You are the leaders of the house. You are the leaders of the house. So these three conditions, that you are the one who holds the reins of this knot of nikah, you should be closer to taqwa. And number 3, you are the one who has been given this afzal al-nisa, that because you spend money on them. So all three conditions, you should give them full meher. You should not forgo meher. Inna Allah bima ta'maluna basir. Remember, Allah is basir, watching, observing all your amal, whatever you are doing. So now look at how Quran presents, how Quran views a divorce. It's not a marriage, it's a divorce. It's a parting way, but Quran wants the man to be a man, to really show man up, as they say, in those conditions, in those situations which are emotionally charged and divorced. And what do we find in our societies? People are waiting. Even if the man wants to divorce a woman, he waits, he troubles, he creates a hell for that woman in the society so that she asks. Because if she asks, the man doesn't have to give anything and she has to give the meher back as well. It is shocking. It is undignified. And Quran wants men, even if they are divorcing, to be dignified, to give more, to never ask back for anything. We read the ayahs last week. They do not ask anything back. And now Allah is talking to them, give something, let alone ask back. You should be giving something when you are parting ways. Then the 38th verse, Allah mentions 238 that I'm talking about. Now we are coming back. So now, as I mentioned, we started from Salah and Zakat, then Hajj and Saum, fasting. Then we went to Jihad. And in relation to Jihad, women and orphans and all those came in. And because of that, Nikah and Sub-Nikah and how to do, what to do, then Talaq, all of these came as a corollary of that. Now we're back to the conclusion of the same topic. Allah says, Hafizu ala salati was salati al-wusta. Hafizu. Protect yourself. Now, Salah is the protector. Quran also mentions as-salah, inna as-salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar. That your Salah protects you from evil deeds and fahshat, from immorality. Salah is supposed to protect you. Okay? But here Allah is mentioning Hafizu. You should be very protective of yourself. You should always be very protective of yourself. Do not mess it. Wa as-salat al-wusta. Salat al-wusta. And the middle salah. The middle salah has been left open. Middle salah can be Fajr. This is between the two. It can be Asr again between the two. It could be Isha again between the two. So any salah is actually Salat al-wusta, depending on the conditions. In the time of Prophet ﷺ, Asr prayer was the most difficult for people to actually hold. The time was such that everybody was busy at Asr time. It was business time. Because during daytime at Zuhr, nobody goes out for business. It's Kaidul, it was so hot over there. So they used to do their salah and sleep and go away. But Asr time was the busy time of business. It was hard. That's why you will find most of the hadiths will say Asr is the middle salah. But that's not just the case. Quran has left it open. Quran didn't name it. For this very fact that the salah which you struggle, each individual, each society, each place, the salah that you struggle, remember to take care of that as well. Do not miss that salah, because it is a time of struggle. It's a time of something that you might miss it. وَقُومُوا لِلَّهِ قَانِتِينَ. And when you are standing in front of Allah, it is not a ritual. Qaniteen, be very humble. Humble yourself. And after salah, you should feel humble, that I have humbled myself. I have become more humble. وَقُومُوا لِلَّهِ قَانِتِينَ. And always stand humble for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ فَرِجَالًا أَوْ رُكْبَانًا. And if you have any danger of any sort, whether it is due to a war or due to any other, for example, in an aeroplane or in a bus or a train, then فَرِجَالًا أَوْ رُكْبَانًا. Then you can even sit down or lying down. Somehow you can sit down and take either you can pray on foot, or rukbana means either pray on foot when you're walking or wherever you're doing, or when you're riding, whether you're riding a horse or you're riding an aeroplane or whatever. However, when you reach peace again, فَإِذَا أَمَنْتُمْ فَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ كَمَا عَلَّمَكُمْ مَا لَمْ تَكُونُوا تَعْلَمُونَ. Then you remember how to do the salah as Allah has taught you already. That's the meaning. Then start doing your qiyam, ruku and sujood in a very qaniteen manner, in a very peaceful manner, in a very humble manner. So you see how the Quran has now come back after going through all that. It's come back to its original, the end or the conclusion of everything. It's like a salah in the start and salah in the end. So hafizu ala salah is like a muhafiz, like a protector. The beginning of the topic and end of the topic comes back to the salah. That salah is most important. If you really want to establish your deen, you have to establish your salah regularly 5 times. And Prophet peace be upon him actually explained this, that if a person, and it was actually Umar radiallahu ta'ala who highlighted this fact, that if you become lax in your salah, you will become lax in any part of your deen. And if you strengthen your salah in the true sense, you will start strengthening every part of your deen. Salah is overarching. You have to take a lot of care of your salah. Then we come to the last bit of this section. وَالَّذِينَ يُتَوَفَّوْنَ مِنْكُمْ وَيَذَرُونَ أَزْوَاجًا وَصِيَّةً لِأَزْوَاجِهِمْ مَتَاعًا إِلَى الْحَوْلِ غَيْرَ إِخْرَاجٍ فَإِنْ خَرَجْنَ فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِيمَا فَعَلْنَ فِي أَنفُسِهِنَّ مِنْ مَعْرُوفٍ وَاللَّهُ عَزِيزٌ حَكِيمٌ. And Allah says, now remember there is another condition which the men should do. See how dignified way things should be. That those people who die, husbands, they should make a will, will, for their azwaj, for their wives, that they should be provided food and clothing and accommodation for 1 year after they die in their own house. They should not go out of that house. Which gives them a long time to not only go through the process of bereavement, overcome that bereavement, but also gives them the time to think about their future and then use their options accordingly. So subhanAllah, look at how brilliantly the Quran has described that the responsibilities to one another, because Quran sees this family as the foundation of the whole society. That is why it is so clear and categorical, especially from the financial perspective on the male, that even when you are passed away, make a will for your wives that they should not be kicked out of the house for at least 1 year. They should be given food, accommodation, clothing, everything that should be there, right? And then they decide. However, if they decide to leave before that, it's their choice. But you can make that will in your will. Min ma'ruf wallahu azizun hakim, and Allah is very strong, very powerful, but also is very hakim, He is very wise. So He gives these powers to you, that you utilize them, but ultimate power is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So remember, you use your powers with hikmah, with wisdom, and with precautions. Some people think that this ayah is abrogated or removed because of the ayahs in Surah Nisa, that describe the division of the inheritance. But this has nothing to do with inheritance. As you can see, there's nothing to do with inheritance. Inheritance is totally different. How much you get from this is the wasiyah for a particular thing. That this woman is now on her own. She has this terrible trauma of losing her husband, and the next day or next month she's been told, okay, now you go away and get lost from here as if you're nobody. That's not the case. Give her this time period. Give her this amount of time. That's what is the connection lost. Can you hear me? I don't know what's wrong with this. It's its connection lost. Anyway, we'll continue. So this is not to do with inheritance at all. This is a specific order from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for those people who are God conscious, those husbands who are God conscious. Then the last two verses of today's discussion, Allah says, وَلِلْ مُطَلَّقَاتِ مَتَاعٌ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ حَقًّا عَلَى الْمُتَّقِينَ. Remember, Allah told us that the widows should be given some money. So the widows who are just who passed, they should be given some ma'ruf. Allah says, similarly, divorced women should in all cases be given some mata'un, some money, some wealth, some resources, according to the norm, bil ma'ruf, whatever is acceptable in society. Like for example, if the person is in UK, you don't give him Pakistani money and say, I gave you 1 lakh Pakistani money. You don't do that. That is nothing. There won't be even probably 100, 200 pounds in total. So if you're in UK, you give that money. If you're in some other country, you give according to the norms, according to ma'ruf. Haqqan alal muttaqin. Again, Allah says, this is an obligation on those who are God-fearing. Again, so whether you have talaq or whatever, you should be giving people the send-off, so to say. كَذَلِكَ يُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ آيَاتِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ. Allah says, see, whenever these ayahs are mentioned, كَذَلِكَ يُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. Allah says, this is how Allah gives bayan. Bayan means details. That means these ayahs have been given in relation to previous questions or previous verses where some people had either misunderstood or something was needing further explanation for people, or people might have got some misunderstandings from that. So Allah clarified something so that never ever will there be any misunderstanding. Whenever Allah does that, He uses this ayah, كَذَلِكَ يُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ آيَاتِهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ. This is how Allah explains and details His ayahs, His commands, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَعْقِلُونَ, so that you understand and you think. Both things. That you will understand what Allah is saying and what the commands mean, and you will think. What does that mean? So that you would think, meaning you will make the natural corollaries of that. Then you will make decisions based on, if similar situations were there, then you will think that, okay, Allah, this is how Allah has meant all of this. So now we can make those decisions because Allah has taught us this method. Allah has given us this method. So we are basing our results, our analogy, or our critical analysis based on the methodology which Allah taught us. So that concludes the third section of Surah Baqarah. We will, after this, inshallah, start the last section, which is the fourth and the last section of Surah Baqarah. That we'll do, inshallah, next week. If there are any questions, comments, or queries, most welcome.
So you mentioned the child that's 100 years old. How about this divorce in this husband?
So in that case, the decision will be between them, what they want to do, how they want to go about. It is basically the rights of the woman that are being talked over here. Not the rights of the child. The right of the child is always there. Child will always belong to father. Excuse me. Father always has to provide for the child, whatever the case may be. In this case, because she is providing an extra service, so she is being provided for those 2 years. She is entitled to those 2 years. Whereas a child, that's always always. Yeah. It becomes irrelevant. It becomes irrelevant. It's only if she provides a service. It is, if you look at the ayahs, the ayah gives us that idea that if they agree between themselves and they don't have to they either feed them at all or feed less before that, ayah gives us that option that they can annul it. There's no problem with it. Yes.
Earlier on,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What did you mean that the man still has to go to the wife?
If there was an agreement in the beginning that I'm going to give you this much, he has to pay that anyway. Even if it stops in the middle, he has, because there was an agreement that I'm going to pay you this much. So he continues to pay that. He pays that much, which was on the, which is agreed. Yeah. But again, if you look at the next part of that, it says, if they again have mushawara, consultation, and they discuss and agree on something, bil ma'ruf, on a good condition, that's fine as well. They can, because conditions, these are matters of condition between the two. If there's a disagreement, no, I still want that, then husbands have been asked by Allah, you pay. Husbands have been asked to pay even if there's no condition for that. Remember, if he's not touched and he's not agreed on anything, Allah said, still pay them something. So husbands have been asked to be more generous, because Allah wants the men to behave like men, rather than behaving like, somebody who is very miserly.
Even if she thinks that
So if she breaks the agreement, then that's a breach of agreement. It comes from her, that's nothing. So he has got no responsibility. He doesn't have responsibility then. But if there's an agreement and the agreement to discontinue the breastfeeding has come from either the male or the heirs of the males, then he still has to pay her, because she didn't refuse to stop. They have decided to somebody else is going to pay, or somebody else, so they have to continue. They have to keep the side of their vow, because she's not the one who has initiated. However, if she initiates it, or they come to a mutual conclusion, it's up to them. Whatever they decide with mutual consultation, that will hold. But if she's not initiating, either husband or somebody is initiating, then they are obliged to pay her what they have agreed. Husband still has to pay for that.
No, who takes the charge?
Women have been given the charge in Islam up until a certain age, up until bulugh, which is like puberty. They are the ones who are mainly responsible. But it's not something which is a foregone conclusion. Again, consultation, mutual agreements, they all hold good. Which is the best place for the person. If she's getting married, then she'll have more trouble. It'll be better for them to stay with the father than obviously. So all those things are to be considered.
And one for death.
Yeah.
So, in case of death, the gonna get allocated. What about in terms of, say, for instance, the women's divorce, or in that period, the husband passes away?
Then again, the see, always the second part applies. The longer part always applies. So she's in the iddah period.
Even after the, so they're divorced in that period, the husband dies away. So she dies rather than do 3 months, and they still have to do 4 months.
No. What happens is, when she's in the iddah period, if the husband hasn't taken her back, and he passes away, the divorce, khalas. Divorce happens there, and she's no longer married to him, so she's not a divorce, she's not a widow. If he did not say, what is talaq basically? So talaq has been given. Yeah, and now there are 3 months for the husband to take her back. If he doesn't take her back, that is finished. It's done. And if he dies during that period, it's no longer her.
Right, so she wants to wait.
Sorry?
She still needs to wait.
Or she will have to wait only total period of 3 months.
Right, okay.
Total period of 3 months. Because the reason for that is to see if she is pregnant or not. So she'll have to wait for a total period of 3 months of having no contact with the husband.
Of course, it's not for morning anymore.
It's not morning, it's not for morning.
Yeah, of course.
It's only for her period of it. And her iddah will finish and that will be.
What about if she been taken for anything as well?
Yes, she will be entitled because he has passed away without having anyone else. She is the ex-wife, so she hasn't been given 3 talaqs. So she will be entitled 25% of.
Oh, okay, like, people are, oh, the FFP is 15 talaq. Oh, right.
Sometimes people get confused. 3 talaq is basically throughout the life. Throughout the life, a husband can divorce only 3 times. And each time the husband divorces, he has only 3 months to take her back. If he doesn't, talaq is done. You know my point? So if within those 3 months he takes her back, then 1 talaq has happened. He can repeat this process 2nd time. And if he does it for the 3rd time, then there's no comment. And
Other confusion, but my understanding was, get last one, wait 3 months, take it back, restart.
no.
Right, okay. So
It's not like that. Walaikum salam. Somebody says talaq, he has only 3 months after that to take her back. And if he says 1, if he doesn't take that back, what is the only difference is, see, after the 2, either the 1st or the 2nd, they can come back and remarry one another. Even 3 months have passed, he didn't, with talaq has happened, but they can remarry one another. But after the 3rd, for them to be able to remarry one another, the wife has to marry. They have to do nikah again because they have had talaq. They already have had talaq. First as well. First and 2nd is not. You see what happens is people think that it is 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. It's not 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Talaq is talaq. You only have 3 months to come back. But 1st, 2nd, and 3rd is because after the 1st or after the 2nd, you can remarry, have nikah again. But once the 3rd happens, you cannot do that at all. The Sajid, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. I wanted to ask about divorces in this country in relation to what we've been discussing. So obviously when you go to the courts in this country, they have their own criteria for dividing the children and the property. More often than not, the mother gets the biggest share of everything. So should Muslims be going to court over divorce in this country? How should they behave properly?
It's a complicated one because if the husband wants to go to a Sharia court, the woman, because she sees, a lot of gold on the other side of it, she would want to go there as well. And she has the legal right, unfortunately, because country's law will always be paramount. That will always take lead. So it's always better to actually, when people are doing nikah, that they put it in nikah, that if there's a divorce situation, we're going to use the Islamic law and not the local law for the divorce application. And that is something which Allah has given us the opportunity. And this is exactly the reason why Allah has given us the opportunity, that you see, when we follow Allah's deen, we forget that there are ways and means of doing them. And for that to happen, we have to legalize them in different ways in different societies. So I would advise that in this country, we actually, when we are signing this document, in that document we sign, from both of them agree that, if there is a case of divorce, unfortunately, we will follow the Sharia and not the local, the law of the land. And, but even then the person may go rogue and they may say, what, I'm going to go take you to the court and other things. So then it is a complicated one. But at least you can minimize, if there are God-fearing people, if they both, think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and akhirah, then that can be minimized, that can be inculcated that can be educated, and educating both males and females initially from the beginning is something important. And also to make a will already of inheritance, that also helps hugely, because that distribution can already be there for children and for everybody else. That minimizes the divorce system as well, because you've already willed that to people. So that's something to look at. And I think if we have more Muslim legal experts, they could actually do a wonderful job for the community to guide and advise, and to keep it within the law of the land.
Yeah, I suppose, yeah, if it's specified in the nikah, that's a binding contract, so that will be legally, well, it'll mean something in the divorce courts as well, won't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Salim?
Divorce someone, 14 months. So the principle of that 3 months to find out if she's with child. So we have, like we talked, we have modern means to find out if she's child.
Yeah.
That 3 months is in the football level, is it?
Oh, it still is applicable, because see, if it's first, although the one major part of it is whether she is pregnant or not, yeah, but it also gives both the parties a time period to think, rethink, and arrange people coming together, families or others, a good amount of time to utilize. But in relation to if it's only, see, one condition is that they want to come back, and for that it's good. It's good to have those 3 months. Other one is, no, I'm not going to go back there anyway. I'm just waiting this because I have to wait for 3 months. Or if the woman is pregnant, the next day, say, well, I'm pregnant, this is it, this is your child. Or I'm going to deliver next day, that finishes. I want divorce, I'm divorced from you, now this is your child. Then we'll discuss what we do. These are two different conditions. One is the person doesn't want to go back, and the other, there is a chance. When there is a chance, then those 3 months. Anyway, use those 3 months, because that cooling period will, inshallah, help.
4 months when the person is a widow.
4 months and 10 days.
Yeah, 10 days. That's a general rule. That's not for any other reason. For example, if she's with child or not.
That is same reason applies. Same reason applies. There's no different reason for that. But more days have been given because it's a trauma. There's trauma associated with it as well. And most of the psychological therapies will tell you that wait 3 months, 3 months plus. And that you can go through bereavement through 3 months. So Allah has given more, 4 months and 10 days. That's just bereavement, goes through that, and you also, if there's a child or something, you find out both things. And then
Is that an obligation or a recommendation?
what?
The 4 months and 10 days.
Obligation. It's an obligation. So Hamid, is your hand up for this for some reason, or was just before? Yeah. No, it's only for women, because the principle is find out if they are pregnant. That's the only reason. There's no other reason. Only applicable to women, not. Yeah. Men can marry next day, but they will never marry next day, because they've just got rid of one. Just got this on record. Well, yeah. Yeah. Yes. Sorry.
So the other factor of the year is why are the years being passed to former?
Oh, the responsibility for the child. You see, the child is the heir as well. Yeah, and the Quranic principle, if you read before, when we talked about yatim, that up until they reach the bulugh, up until they reach the puberty, the family members are responsible to take care of their mal and to take care of their tarbiyah. And part of that is the first 2 years of raza. And that can be raza from the mother or from someone else. So they have to, these obligations, these responsibilities, this is not an agreement. The husband may die before the child is born. The husband may die before the child is born. Even then, the heirs will have the responsibility to do exactly what a husband would have done. That's the responsibility on the family, on the heirs, the next kin, people who are inheriting from them. What is what the Quran describes as akrabun nafa, those who have got benefit from it. Yes, of course. Yeah. Then it has to be child welfare system or whatever it is, Baitul Mal, the what do you call it? The government comes into that. Yeah.
In the law of Pakistani culture, when this woman is it true that what women do is they go to their parents' house, they just stay in the house for 4 months, kind of leave.
It's wrong. It's wrong. It's a wrong concept. You see, what Prophet peace be upon him mentioned to the women was that do not adorn yourself, do not beautify yourself, because that was one way of communicating to everybody else that I am available for marriage in that society. And in all fairness, in almost all societies, there is some kind of communication from females that they are available. Like, for example, in this country, not wearing a ring is one thing that communicates to people that I am available. And there are other subtle means which people sometimes use to say I'm available for marriage. Yeah? And in the Arab society, one of the things that was available for, or that was a way of communicating, was women adorning themselves and going out and meeting, meaning I'm prepared for marriage. That's what Prophet said, no, when you're in that mourning period, do not do that. But even if you do not adorn yourself, or if you do not put makeups and whatever on your bodies, you have to go work. You have to work, you go to work. Prophet, there are examples of the time of Prophet peace be upon him. Women were allowed to go to do the job, to do their work, to move from one place to another place. In fact, some of the Sahabis, Prophet peace be upon him, recommended them, no, you stay somewhere else. You go and stay somewhere else, have some fresh air and all those kind of things. There are a lot of psychological things in that. You can't isolate a person. A person has just lost the husband, they've had a bereavement, and you tell them just put them down, put them in one place. It's the worst thing that you can do to an individual. There is no obligation from the Quran. The only thing the Quran asks is prevent yourself from remarrying or taking marriage proposals. That is all. There is no other obligation on them, that they can't move, they can't go out, they can't visit somebody cannot visit. There's nothing like that. This is just cultural makeup or made up. Anything else? Any other points? Any other comments?
Islamic Outreach Project does the dawah stalls up and down the country, inshallah. Please support us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد